Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, Hairbrain fans. My name is Wayne Woodruff, Technical Director for Davines North America, and I'm here with Julian Perlingero.
Hey guys.
Artist. We've got the beautiful Marie, and Julian's going to do an amazing haircutting technique for us. And we're going to have Camilla, the Color Director for North America, talk about the color a little bit later, because you just got your color done, right, Marie?
Yes.
And if you have any questions, put them in the comments, and I'll answer them as they come through. But Julian, take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Wayne. All right, so on Marie's hair, she's been growing it out, which I think is starting to look really good, but it needs a little shape to it. It's been a while since her last haircut. Now, in the consultation, we spoke about doing something that kept length to it, but really refresh the layering. She likes it to kick around. She likes it to look a little bit, loose on the edges. So what I want to do is I'm going to go in and start with my layering. Now, I sectioned off just from the curvature of the head down to the back of the ear. Now, I'm going to be working with vertical, slightly diagonal sections, and then the elevation and angle that I create is going to maintain length through the bottom, and at the same time, take the interior where you can see it's really grown out, so the edges are getting very translucent, and give it a stronger internal shape. Right, so
what really makes you decide to work the internal layering first versus the outline? Because I know most people get in a tendency of just working the outline.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a common thing that people do. And really what it gives me the ability to do is to choose, how much weight I want to remove and let that really govern the length of the hair. And it also allows me to, keep the edge softer more naturally. Whereas when you cut a blunt outline, unless that's definitely what you're going for, to then go back and try to remove the weight from it is twice as the amount of work. So by layering it through first, and then I can adjust the length accordingly.
Is that something you do, like you mentioned, Maurice, kind of growing her hair out?
Yep.
Is that like a deciding factor?
Well, and then, that definitely is a part of it, but I think more so is that she likes it to look softer on the edge. And I think that that's something that's a very current trend right now. You see a lot in the magazines, a lot of, people who are fashion forward walking around with looser edges, but still a nice shape to the hair. So there's a definite difference between just not cutting it and having a shape, that looks soft but healthy.
Perfect. All right, Monica says, love the color. And again, the color was just done by Camilla using Davines color. And we'll have her come out a little bit later and talk about how she achieved this beautiful color.
Cool. So now I'm going to start to work through the second zone of the haircut, which is from the curvature of the head. And you can see I'm following the parietal through. I'm just going to step in front for a second. Right, so you can see this sectioning here. So going right from where the head is the flattest point at the crown, and then following that through, following the curvature right through to the front. Now the layering is going to blend into, the layering that I did on the underneath. But the elevation and the angle is a determining factor. Just want to get this sectioned away. Get that away neatly. Now, the section stays the same. And I'm looking at the guideline from the underneath. And what I have to determine is, right, if I'm going to blend it into that guideline, how short do I want the layering through the crown? Now, the shorter that I want the layering, I'm going to come more concave so that the angle gets shorter through the top of the section and then again extends into the length that I created on the underneath. If I want it to be a little bit heavier and a little bit more weight, I take that angle and I just flatten it out slightly. So this is what I'm going to be doing because I want to keep a little bit of length through the top. So rather than angling my fingertips in, which takes it shorter, I'm pulling out, still connecting to the bottom, but a flatter angle to the layers.
All right, so Mark has a question. Does this haircut have a name?
A technical name, I would call it a form of triangular concave layers. As far as a fad name, now when I talk to my clients and explain, the terminology I use for Marie, I said, so you want it to look a little bit flicky and kicky, right? And she kind of identified with that because I think connecting to the person is really important and using, words that they feel excited about. Now, if she was a more conservative person or I felt someone that those terminologies wouldn't be as appropriate for her, I might say something a little bit different. I might talk about softness and movement. So again, I think identifying with the client is extremely important in the adjectives that we use.
Right, and in a teaching scenario, you use more like technique and shape.
Teaching scenarios, very geometric, based on the shape and the technique of the haircut. So when I refer to triangular, what I'm referring to is the shape is going to be more like a U shape, so wider through the front and then narrower through the back. Similar to a triangle, but think more like a U, right? So basically a U shape is a rounded out triangle. Then vertically, it's at a layered angle, right? So the more I take the layers in at the top, the more so concave. The more I'm even, the flatter I am to the head shape, right? So I adjust that angle, and that's how I talk technically about the layers.
All right, so Ian Graham says, hi Wayne and Julian, love peace and hair grease. And Gerard just joined and said, you're looking good.
Thanks, Gerard.
Which
Hope,
is looking good,
hope,
guys.
hope we're doing it. He must be talking about you, Wayne.
Probably.
Yeah.
It was plural.
It was.
Thanks, Gerard. Gerard normally doesn't compliment me like that. I'm flattered.
I just wanted to give a shout out to Ayla behind the camera. Thank you.
Okay, so always just looking, taking a moment, seeing where the layers fall, seeing the proportion, from the outline shape to the shortest layer on the top, right? So that's the angle, right? And then it's just elevated out when I cut it.
Breaking news, Gerard just said I look better.
Of course he did. Well, Wayne, that is quite a lovely shirt you have on today.
So can you talk about the tension?
See how he changes the topic.
Could you talk about the tension a little bit? Because I know that Marie's got a fair amount of hair.
Are you talking about the tension that I'm creating, mentioning your shirt, or the tension of the haircut?
The haircut.
Okay, all right. Just wanted to get that straight, guys.
Shirt later.
All right. So the tension of the haircut. Normally, when I'm layering, I'll work with a little bit more of a heavy hand because what it does is it'll soften any tendencies of weight lines or weight within the haircut. So I want to make sure that I get the tension. You'll see that I get the comb right at the root. I'm using the fine teeth of the comb, combing out, and then as it comes to my fingers, I just put my fingers behind the comb so that I'm stretching her head. You can see Marie's chin just kind of lifting up a little bit. So that's an indicator that the tension is quite strong. Now, if I was graduating or if I was working one length, obviously the tension would be much less. But for layers, I think it can take heavy hair like Marie has, because she has quite a bit, and it can help give a softness to the edge just by increasing the tension, right? So it's almost like a prelude to actually pointing into it. So it gives you a little bit of inconsistency through the edges.
Okay, so we've got a question from George. What's the reason you started with the internal shape first? So if you can just kind of do like a little recap.
Yeah, awesome, George. Yeah, we were talking about that a little bit earlier, and it's a common question because a lot of times people think to start in the outline, and they get into that habit of starting in the outline. When we start in the outline, we tend to build a definite shape, right? And with what I'm doing on Marie, I want a softness to the edge. So if I was to go and cut a blunt line at the bottom first, it would take twice as much work to then try to remove the bluntness or the weight of it. Now, one of the things that you need to be aware of when you are starting internally, so I have to lift that up and I have to be able to adjudge where's it going to fall onto the body. And if there is any kind of hesitation and you're not sure, comb it down and have a look, then pull it out and see where it brings you so that you can judge the length in the air before it falls on the body.
All right, so just want to say a big hi to Angela Del Mar and Nanette. We also have some viewers from Hong Kong and Algeria.
Awesome, guys.
It's amazing seeing the hairbrain community grow internationally.
Yeah.
Have this platform to be able to share knowledge. Sweden.
And Sweden, good, yeah. We're getting all over out there, huh?
Hola.
Nice.
So did you put anything in the hair prior to cutting?
Yeah, I did the Day spray. I had it right over there on the counter. And I use this a lot for my pre-cutting lotion. It conditions the hair really nicely and it helps out with the blow dry. So by spraying it in as I go with the haircut, it really lets the hair absorb it. So that when I blow dry the hair, it comes out healthier, shinier, and I get a nicer finish to the blow dry. All right, so now in through the front, you can see, Marie's hair is already a bit shorter. So I'm combing back, and it's not really reaching at this point, which is fine. I did take that into account in the beginning, and once I finish the shape through the front, I am going to go back through and work the layering around the face.
So you don't feel like you have to follow that hair
right
now.
Exactly. And that's what happens. People sometimes think like, oh my God, I'm not cutting anything. Let me adjust what I'm doing to accommodate the angle, which might alter the shape.
Right.
All right. So here's the angle through the first half, and you can see the layers getting longer towards the front, right? So keeping the length down about the shoulder, following through to the collarbone, the layering sitting heavy enough, right? Just about the occipital, and then it goes from this point, then drops down through to the front. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start out on the other side.
Okay, so what are you thinking about when you're starting this second side now?
Well, I mean, consistency. Consistency starts with the sections of the haircut. Everything starts from what you do on the head. So I have to go back and think, all right, well, where did I start my first section? What was the angle of my first section? Because what that does is the section is going to dictate what my fingers do. So I want to keep my fingers parallel to the section. So I take my comb, place it parallel, then I'm pulling out, right? Now I want to see the guideline, make sure that I have the same angle of elevation and finger angle, and then the real key is to then try to do the same over direction back that I did on the first side. Now, when I'm looking at the over direction back, I'm looking at a couple things. I'm looking at where the hair's coming from. I'm looking at where my hand is, and then I'm looking at the shoulder to see where the hair is going. So I have 3 points of reference to measure distance and angle, right? So start, my eye travels from the section. It goes from the section to my finger, then it goes from my finger to the shoulder. Then it goes back to my finger, if everything's good, and I cut, right? So, where the eye travels is really important in judging the consistency from side to side. Now, the one thing that is different is my hand angle. So if you notice on the first side, right, my knuckles are down, my fingertips are up. Right? When I go to do the second side, I switch my body, which switches my hand. So just getting used to this motion, left leg forward, right, fingertips up. Right leg forward, fingertips down. So when I'm going to the left, my left leg's forward. When I'm going to the right, my right leg's forward. Now what I wouldn't do, so I'm going to show you some bad habits here. Right? If my
Just for the record,
just for the record, don't do this. So I wouldn't have my left leg forward and then try to cut with my fingers down. Because now my body's twisted and I'm off angle. I wouldn't cut this side and try to turn my fingers at the angle up. So it's a very natural hand and body position. So I just relax into it, let my hand naturally fall, pull back to the center of my chest. Right? Let my hand naturally fall, pull back to the center of the chest. And a lot of the body mechanics comes through repetition. I think, with working with good body posture, through repetition, you start to create good habits, which basically means, it becomes the way that you do it.
All right, so George has a question.
Yep.
Can you tell us a tip for basically balance from side to side and internal and external links?
Yeah.
So
Well,
talk about balance just a little bit.
Well, first of all, everything I just said, and then from there, cross-checking your balance as you go, right? So I'm not far enough along to cross-check it, but at the same time, when I do check, if I feel that I need, now I didn't cut this last section, I'll look at it opposite and make sure that it's even, right? So I'm going to pull it out and look at it, check it with my fingers, make sure that everything's balanced.
And another question, how many inches are your shears?
Okay.
Scissors.
Yeah, these are 5.5, right? So these are crafted by BMAC, right? They have my Gold Pig logo on them. They also say Venice, California, which is really cool. But these are 5.5 inch. I like to work internally with a smaller scissor. I would say no bigger than 6, and then down to about a 5. I do have longer ones for blunt lines and for scissor over comb. All right, so working through with that consistency now. Combing back, making sure that I'm on my guideline. I want to see the guideline really clean. And you can just look at the difference. I mean, look at the edge of her hair to start, right? And that's very typical. And now look at the edge that I place on it, right? And a lot of times people think, well, a blunt edge like that's going to fall heavy. Well, not if the elevation and the layering is at the right angle. That's the key right there.
Now, do you plan on doing a lot of texturizing at the end, or is the layering going to be sufficient?
The layering is going to be, you know, probably the majority of the softness. I may, be very minimal with it. And I think if you get the angles right, I don't rely on a lot of texturizing and freehand, unless the density of the hair is either very overwhelming or, you know, it is inconsistent. Because when we texturize hair, it's to soften the edges and create sometimes more of a consistency in density. But now I find that I do less texturizing than what a lot of people may think to create soft shapes. Because I rely on the geometry being right to produce the right shape.
All right, our old friend Mike Valera says, what's up?
Hey Mike, how's it going, man? Hope all is well with you.
And we've also got Jocelyn from Burnberry doing a TTT with Yuko, one of our national master trainers.
Oh, very cool. You know, and just again, you know, I mean, Wayne mentioned it earlier, you know, just having such a great community here with, you know, the Davines team, you know, working with Hairbrained and, you know, allowing us to have such a great platform with, you know, so many great people internationally, you know, some that we know, some that we're just getting to know. And if this is something that, you know, you're new to this platform of education, you know, definitely, you know, keep your eye on what's happening. You know, we have a lot of great artists in the Davines family doing a lot of great cuts, colors, styling, you know, all sorts of things that you definitely want to be on top of. All right, so now I'm starting to get through that side area. So you can see the sectioning is still diagonal. Right, so I still have that slight angle to it. And then over directing the hair back, right? Still looking at the shoulder. Everything's coming back past the curvature of the shoulder. And even if some of the hair doesn't reach as I get further forward to the front, that's okay for now, because I am going to address the hair around the face after I get this basic shape in. Now, just to go back, Wayne, to what you asked about texturizing, that may be somewhere that I do need to do a little bit of texturizing, because the hair in the front is a little bit short. And, you know, if the hair was really all long and I pulled it back, I would have a much more true triangular shape from back to front. But because it does have a little bit of weakness through here, I might need to work a little bit softly. Yeah, do a little bit of sketch work, so to speak.
All right, I just want to say a big shout out to Graham from Avalon. You just tuned in.
Oh, awesome. Welcome, Graham.
All right, if you can just do like a quick recap. We've had a lot of people just join, and they're wanting to know kind of what you're doing and where you started and where you're going.
All right, well, I'm in Palm Springs, guys, so that's where I am.
That's why I have the shirt on.
That's why Wayne has such a fancy shirt. This is Marie, my lovely model that I'm cutting her hair. She just had her hair colored. Camilla will talk about that shortly. As far as the haircut, I spoke to Marie about the look that she wanted to do. She's been growing it out, which I think is, you know, a common thing that people come in, they grow it, they cut it, they grow it, they cut it, right? And, you know, I'm trying to think of things, okay, well, she wants to grow it, so what can I do to help? So as it's been growing out, it's starting to get a little bit broken looking through the edges, but she likes the softness that it has to it. She likes the length. So what I'm doing is I'm going through, I'm working a form of triangular, which is referring to the shape from back to front, right? So a little bit narrower, longer and wider through the front, more like a U shape. And then the vertical angle that I'm cutting is more of what I would consider a concave layer, right? So lifting out away from the bottom, leaving length, but taking the internal shape slightly shorter so that it has movement to it.
And that's going to create that lightness that you're trying.
That's going to create the lightness, the softness. You know, and when I talk about things like this, you know, with my clients, I talk about, okay, do you like movement in your hair? Do you like it, you know, to have softness to the edge? What are the characteristics that you're looking for that I can help bring out in your hair? You know, a lot of times we'll say things like, well, layers remove weight. And that can be really misleading, especially to a client or a young stylist, right? Because what happens when you remove the weight from the hair? Right, so sometimes you think, oh, well, it gets smaller. Well, no, well, if it's curly hair, it gets bigger, right? So the removal of weight, yes, that's true, but I'm also thinking about what the effect is that it's having to the edge of the haircut. Now you can see I'm not taking the layering up too high in through the back, still keeping it a little bit lower. I don't want it to get all the way up here where it kind of flattens the head shape out.
Look like that Friends type of, back when I was, you know, 2 years old.
Is that when that was, Wayne?
That's when that was. All right, so I just want to say a big shout out to Anna Knowles and her daughter Beatrice, and a big hi to Rick Bennett.
Oh, Rick's joining. All right, nice, Rick. How you doing, Anna? Hi, Rick. Good to have you guys watching.
Sandra Love said, wow, come do my hair.
Well, Sandra, where are you?
Exactly, right? And Lisa Graves, where did you train? You're still training.
Yeah. Well, I'm still training. I started my career in Philadelphia, and then I moved to New York, where that's where I kind of consider my professional training to have started, where I worked at Vidal Sassoon Salon on Fifth Avenue. And I worked there for quite a while, and I went through the apprenticeship program, and then from there became an instructor at the Los Angeles Academy, where I worked for years, and now I'm working with the Davines cutting team.
Amazing. All right, Helena from Ireland just joined. Hello.
Hello, Miss Ireland.
We've got Heather Reed. Is this like a A-line layer Sassoon cut?
It's similar because it's based off of that triangular shape. Now, I mean, if you for those of you out there, Sassooners, you know, the A-line look starts a bit blunter, so it's more of a bobby shape, and then it works into the layers. Beautiful haircut done by Richard. Where this, I started right into the layering, so you get a much softer, looser looking outline. But when you think about A-line, yeah, we think about triangles.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You know, and I still, you know, that would be a terminology that I would also use with clients, because I think you know, sometimes we get too technical. Like you tell a client, oh yeah, I want to do triangular layers, and she runs out the door.
Yeah, you have to be careful with that terminology.
Yeah. But in our nerdy hairdressing world, we can say things like that. All right, so just working through, making sure that that line's really clean. Now, what I also want to do is I'm going to come through, take a horizontal section, and I'm going to pull this out, lift up, and then now I'm checking that my over direction back was consistent, not bad.
All right, that's just to kind of give it a soft check.
Yeah, give it a check, make sure that the proportions, and this also goes to, you know, I can't remember the gentleman's name, who was asking about balance. You know, this is how I'm checking my balance. I'm going to stand on this side just so Ayla has an angle, right? So I'm not standing with my back to her, but I'm going to do the same check to make sure that that check from back to front now with the layering is at the proportionate angle. All right, so this is all looking cool. I think her hair is flicking out a bit nicely. Now I want to get into the top. So I'm just going to spin you around, darling. Okay.
Say a big hello to Ronnie King from Jacksonville.
Hey, Ronnie. Yeah.
Part of the Davines family.
Yeah, I was out in Jacksonville not too long ago, and we had a great time with Ronnie out there and the team, working with our Southeast team.
Yeah. Got a question from Tony Lepre, I'm
Uh-huh.
currently studying hairdressing.
Yep.
Any tips or advice, please?
Oof, how many hours do you have, Tony? I mean, try to absorb as much as possible. You know, try to find good people to follow. And when you do, try to understand to the best of your ability, what they're trying to share with you. I think, realize that a good mentor is going to help you, and, try to share their experiences with you. There's lots of great things that you can see on different forums like Hairbrained. And, you can get exposed to a lot of different ideas. You can also, we have, classes, through Davines where we do cut, color, style, hands-on. I just did a class up in Seattle, which was amazing. It was a clipper cutting class where I went into a private Davines salon and worked with the team there on fundamentals of using clippers so that they could start to feel more comfortable and introduce it to their salon clientele.
Could you talk about the positioning of the head? We've got a question about head position when you're working through the top.
Yeah. Right now I have her pretty straight on. And because I'm going to be over directing the hair back, I'm going to stand behind it. Now, if the head was too tall, or if my client was too tall, if the hair was too long, I might tilt the head slightly so that I could get the appropriate angle off the head shape. Or I could tilt it away from my body, which would allow me really to cut a lot more off the internal layering. But for what I want to do is I'm going to keep the head in a neutral position. I'm going to look at that guideline from what I did on the sides. That's why I checked to make sure that I have a clean guideline. And now I'm going to blend this through. And the layers through the top are going to be a little bit more rounded. So I'm following the curvature of the head, right? I don't want to cut them in, because if I was to angle like that, you see how much more I would cut away. Not wrong, it's just I want to keep the layers longer for her, right? So I'm angling not perfectly flat, but taking my guideline and working more on a curve. Now, as I work towards the front, I'm keeping the sections parallel. And now over directing everything back to just about a stationary guide. But what you need to think is the more you pull back, the longer the front. And that's basically what it boils down to in its most simplistic thought process. We don't want to overcomplicate things, right? So I'm pulling it back to match how much length I want to leave here. Now again, if you're not sure and you need to pull this back to look prior to doing it, that's perfectly fine. So now I can see, oh, okay, well now I'm cutting about that much off the front, right? So I'm still keeping length there by over directing it back.
Okay, so Joe House,
Yep.
it's the model's hair, it's Marie's hair, thick or fine, guessing that the cut adds volume.
It will a little bit, and that comes down to the density of the hair, Joe. She has a lot per square inch. Like if you look closely, right, like there's a lot of hair there, There's a lot of density to it. The hair itself, if you look at the individual, strand of hair, I would say it's more medium. It's not thick in diameter. So when I'm looking at density and I'm looking at thickness, I'm looking at, first, well, how much hair, how many pieces of hair are coming out of this person's head? And then, some clients, the hair can actually, the diameter of it's quite thick, right? So I think mostly with Marie, the weight comes from the density of her hair.
And a question from Nora. She's having challenges with controlling and finding her guidelines.
Oh,
And
yeah, that's a big one, Nora. Well, it starts with first clean sections, right? I'm going to be really simple and straightforward with that one. Clean sections will tell your fingers where to be in position. Now, you also need to make sure that your guidelines aren't overly thick so that it your new section isn't overly thick so that it overpowers your guideline. On thicker hair, you want to tend to go a little bit less. But now you also need to make sure that you're cutting a clean shape. Like if I pull this out, right? Like you can see how definite that line is, right? You know, I want it to live within, I mean, less than a 64th of an inch of cleansiness. Now, if I take a section, right, and I pull that back, and I get an appropriate amount of hair, and I pull that back onto that guideline, so now you can see how translucent the new section is, and you can see how definite my guideline is. Now let's say I did this, and I was only cutting that much off. Now it's still too translucent for me to see the guideline, right? So that's why when I first started with the section of hair, you know, I chose the length and the amount I cut off with a couple different factors. One, based on the consultation and what Marie wanted her hair to look like and what we both agreed that should happen to it. And then making sure that I cut enough hair to get a clean, definite guideline. Because if you don't have that, it's going to be really tricky to see it. You know, and yes, I know sometimes clients aren't willing to cut that much, which does make it more difficult. With that thought process in mind, do the best you can, right? You know, if you can't get a clean, strong shape, sometimes, you know, you will suffer.
Particularly when clients are growing their hair out, you
Yeah,
know, they're
yeah.
kind of nervous, and you got to do it in stages
Yeah,
sometimes.
and it's the reality of working with people, you know. Yeah, I mean, it would be like, okay, well, we have to cut 12 inches of your hair off to make it in great condition. You know, they're not all going to go for that. So, you know, like you said, you have to work it in stages and do the best you can, right? So look, so you can really see how this is happening now, right? So you see that texture coming through. I love Marie's hair in the sense of its natural texture. I would never try to control this hair. Let it do its thing, right? Let it be a little bit irregular. Let it kind of kick around and move. I would hate to blow dry this, but that's just me. Could you blow dry this really smooth and sleek and all that? Yeah, sure you can.
we don't have that kind of time.
We don't have that kind of, you don't have that kind of time in your life, do you? Nah.
Just a quick question. I know it's always a loaded question, but somebody's asked,
I love loaded
how
questions.
much would you charge for something like this? And I know pricing is, you
Well,
know,
something like this for Marie, I would do for free because she's such a lovely person. But now, in general, my clientele, I charge $150 for a haircut. Right? That's approximately I book on about an hour. That includes, you know, your cleansing, your shampoo, your haircut, and a more natural form of blow drying. But that's the clientele that I cater to. I know a lot of people that charge a lot more. I know a lot of people that charge a lot less. So it's just really what's relative to your area and what's relative to the clientele that you want to work on.
yeah, I mean, it's based off of experience, geography,
Yeah,
where you work.
yeah, of course.
All right, so if you're just joining us, my name is Wayne, this is Julian, we're with Davinus, doing a beautiful haircut on Marie, and as soon as Julian starts to, are you gonna let it naturally dry, or are you gonna use
I'm
a
gonna
dryer?
put some, no, I'm gonna do maybe a little drier.
Yeah,
you know,
we'll
not
bring-
too much.
We'll bring Camilla up,
Yeah.
which just did the color a couple of minutes ago, and we've had a lot of really positive feedback
Oh, awesome.
about the color as well.
Awesome. Yeah, and then also, you know, I think the product is important because I want something that's gonna add moisture, you know, give a little bit of weight to the edge of the hair so that, you know, it does kind of flick around. I started out with the Day spray, and that was my blow drying spray.
All right, Jude Campbell, oh my God, I love this cut. I'm gonna have my hairdresser do it next time, so.
Ah, nice, Jude. Thank you very much.
Nanette wants to know what we're both doing in Palm Springs. We are actually here with the whole North American Education Group, and we're planning events for the rest of this year and
Yeah.
next year. So, yeah, and we
And-
figured, you know, what a better location than Palm Springs to do.
Had to get away from the computer and get some scissors in my hand.
Exactly.
All right, so just about finishing up on this top area. Again, keeping my over direction back, making sure that I can see the guideline really clearly. Making sure that it blends into the first side. So you can see I do pick that up and connect that through.
So that helps with your balance as
Oh
well.
God, yeah. Yeah, because if that blend doesn't happen in the middle. And if I notice, you know, that when I do take this side, it's longer, like if it's like that, right? Well, something's wrong there, right? So I want to make sure that it's, oh, look at that, that was kind of cool. Did you
I
see-
wasn't paying
you were
attention.
paying- Wayne's never,
I was reading the comments.
Wayne's never paying attention when I'm doing the cool stuff. All right, so now taking through the center, and this will be the last section before I cross-check on the top. Pulling that hair back, making sure that blends through. Now, just like I cross-check the back and the sides, I'm gonna take my sections relatively opposite. And what I wanna see is I wanna see that, why don't you just face this way, Marie? So what I wanna see is I wanna see that I have a nice clean over direction, right? So again, I'm getting that sharp line, and that was my cross check, right? So I'm having a decent day. Lucky for you, Marie. Some days better than others. Lifting up, making sure that blends through really neatly, yeah. And if I work down, the only thing that's gonna happen is the bottom's gonna stop reaching, but I do wanna just pass the curvature, which a lot of times we refer to as the parietal, but I like to call it the curvature because then everybody knows what I'm talking about. All right, make sure that blends through. I'll do that same on the other side. For camera's sake, I am gonna stand on the same side.
Real quick question.
Yeah.
We've got Jennifer asking if these are round layers, and I think I know why. But can you just explain?
Well, they have a They have a rounded element to them.
Yeah.
You know, and I think when we look at when we look at techniques and we look at shapes and things like that, you know, we try to categorize it into the category that it fits best, right? That'd be like saying, I'm going to make the hair red. I mean, how many shades of red can we make the hair? You know, so when I say I'm going to be working triangular concave layers, there are elements of other angles and other shapes within it to soften it and to make it work for the individual. So yeah, so in through the sides and back, actually face forward, I get a good visual here. Right? So in through the sides and back, I'm lifting out away from the head, right? But then as it goes up through the top, it does round into more of a convex shape. So it's concave into curvature, which would be called convex. If it was truly concave, it would be much shorter through the top. But by extending that length out, yeah, it has an element of roundness to it. You know, you also need to think even with the front to back shape, right? So the triangular, it's not a triangle into a point in the back. We soften the apex of the triangle with a circle. Roundness softens the other shapes. Roundness creates movement. We cut a square layer and we bevel the corners, so we add a little bit of roundness to it. We cut a triangle and we bevel the corner off in the back, so we add a little roundness to it, right? So that'll always give you a softer, you know, edge to the shape. Because again, a triangle or a square can be quite harsh on the head, and they don't really fit as well. So yeah, that's very good eye. I can't remember her name, but very good eye.
All right, we've got Matthew asking if we're going to have any events in Croatia. Peter Paolo, do you know of any events in Croatia?
I'll go.
Yeah, we're constantly having events globally. So yeah, just check
Bologna
it.
in September.
Pardon me?
Bologna, Italy in September is not too far.
Closest will be Bologna in September. We'll have a hair on the stage. But we've got local events globally.
Right. So this, guys, is without any finish. You know, so I mean, just looking at the shape and looking at what the hair has done, you know, that's with nothing, right? So I did say I wanted to go through and check the front because it didn't all reach to where I needed it to be. So I'm going to come back through the front, comb this forward, and I just want to make sure that I have a nice edge. I'm not going to be taking much off, right? But just make sure that I have a nice edge on the hair.
So would you consider this more kind of like refining, because obviously you're going to dry it a bit more naturally?
Yeah,
so
this-
you're probably not going to comb through.
Yeah, with something like that, when you want a curly finish, a natural finish, you know, you have to do your refinements prior to putting your products, or definitely prior to doing any form of blow drying. Right? So I'm just checking that, but I mean, I hope you guys agree. I like it. It's starting to really fall nicely. Now, you know, also look at where it's fallen beneath her chin, which I think is a really beautiful area because she has a gorgeous chin line, beautiful cheekbones, and the weight and the layers sit beneath that point, which emphasizes this. If I was to put all this up here, well, now I'm crowding, you know, some of the features on her face that I want to emphasize. So by keeping the layers a little bit below that, it just opens this area up, right? And exposes and ultimately, you know, enhances the bone structure.
So, I mean, you're definitely talking about suitability, which I think
Yeah.
is amazing. We just had a question on how would you adjust this to work on maybe a more of a mature client? And I know that's a challenge one as well.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, does she have really pretty hair and pretty features? I'll do the same thing.
Exactly.
You know, but I think this is something that could be age relevant to many different ages. You know, it's not
some texture question.
Yeah, it's not something that is so youthful that I couldn't do it on, you know, someone that's a little bit older. But then again, it's not something that's too mature that I couldn't do on a younger girl. I think this can go either way.
Universal.
So, you know, I look at the face shape, look at the bone structure, look at the texture, and then where you place your length and weight should complement those things.
Perfect.
So again, just combing forward, just making sure I have a clean edge. Not doing much through the front. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that, again, it was clean and there was nothing that I missed. All right, so.
All right, so while you're getting set up for your blow dry, I just wanted to introduce Camilla Harrell. She's a color director from North America. Everybody's loving the color. Just kind of go through how you achieve this shade of red.
Hi everyone, good to see you guys, or be with you guys. So with Marie's hair, we've done the distance consultation with a nice photo and things like that. So packed a little treasure chest of gems to bring here with us today. And then when I saw Marie this morning, her hair was quite a bit darker at the root area than I'd anticipated. So we went in as a bit more of a color correction, keeping away from the new growth through the midsection. We lifted with the 10-2-3 and 40 volume.
That's with Davines, obviously.
With Davines, yeah, which is kind of a violet gold. So still wanting to keep it in the warm family and bring out some of the warmth, but control that kind of yellow undertone while lifting. And then we went in on the root area, made a quick phone call, phoned a friend, just to confirm my lovely consultation and formulation. And went in with a 634, so a goldy copper in there. On a level 6 with just a hint of that really kind of vibrant copper tone in Davines with the 644. So it was 60 grams to 5 grams with 20 volume on the root. And then what we did is we took a slightly curved section all the way through the mid-band area and framed the face first of all with some foils slices with a little bit of the Liberty bleach, and then came through and did a little bit more kind of freehanding bleach in there, and then we toned everything with the View 844 and 833, which is intense copper with intense gold, because the main thing that Marie said to me is that I want vibrancy, but I would like it natural. I don't want to look like a clown kind of copper. So she wanted that kind of natural sun-kissed. So we just went for it. We wanted to make the roots a little bit lighter, a little bit more summery. So just, yeah, loving the way it's all kind of blending and coming together at the moment.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Do you have the DD?
Yeah, I sure do.
Yeah.
Right in my pocket.
Yeah, see, it's like how many products can you fit in your pocket? All right, so I just want to dampen the hair down with the DD Mist.
All right, that's just going to put a little bit of moisture in.
Yeah, put
For
moisture.
the blow dry.
Yeah, get control the cuticle again. Just from me combing through it, it kind of beats it up a little bit. Now, once I have that through, let's see what else I have in my pockets here. All right, so I'm going to use some of the Davines oil, sorry. All right, so this is going to put a little bit, put a little bit in the hair to coat the edges, right? So, you know, with Marie's edges, the ends of the hair from growing it out can use a little bit of oil, can use some nourishment to it. Also, it can use it through the front to help control any flyaways. Now I'm brushing through the hair. My hands are slippery now. Can you grab that towel? So I'm brushing through the hair to control the cuticle, right? And then also to get the product through fully. I'm not going to brush her hair with blow drying it. Her hair, unless I really wanted to smooth out the hair section by section, brushing the hair would definitely, you know, not do good things for the cuticle. It will also make the hair swell, where I want to keep it a little bit more controlled. Now from there, I'm going to remove a little bit of the moisture, not too much, so I'm keeping my dryer on low, using my hand to shield. You can also use a diffuser, but I'm not going to be drying it that much, and the hair isn't, you know, curly, so just using the hand to shield it. Now, I mean, some of you, I know you're thinking like, well, aren't you burning your hand? No, it's not that hot. But if your dryer does get hot, don't do this.
Yeah, so you're not looking to dry the hair 100%.
No. I want to let the air dry it. If I was in the salon, like let's say if this was Chicago in the winter, I would diffuse it fully, or I'd put her under a heating lamp. But we have the luxury, we're here in California, it's 111 degrees outside. Really guys, 111.
Yeah, this is obviously something that Marie will be able to reproduce
Oh
as
yeah.
well.
Well, what I would say is like, if in the morning, you know, if she gets out of the shower, put the product in, put the cocktail in, right? And then comb the hair back, comb it smoothly, and go about your business. Do your makeup, get dressed, do all that stuff. And then once it's about dry, well then you can start to work with your styling products. Right?
Right, so one more question.
Yeah.
Are you going to cross-check it once she's dry?
Oh, absolutely not. No, I cross-check, guys, if you missed that. I cross-check everything before I re-moisturize the hair and before I add products and style, right? Because I don't want to disturb it. If I was to start to comb through it again, what's going to happen is it's going to start to get flyaway, right? So cross-check everything. I did all my refinement prior to blow drying. Mostly focusing my heat on the roots. You know, something like this, I know this can take a little bit of time, and that's what I was saying. If you're in the salon, you know, I'd put her under the lamp.
Yeah.
Right? Because some of you might be thinking, oh, well, I couldn't take, you know, 20 minutes, 30 minutes to stand and do the blow dry. You know, and then also some of you might be thinking, well, I would really love to round brush this. I mean, that's perfectly fine. I think, you know, style options are really, you know, your personal choice of you and what your client likes. Some of you, you know, would be thinking like, oh, I'd love to do this and smooth it out and use a smoothing iron, which is another option.
Yeah, we've got a comment by Jocelyn, which is during one of our TTTs up in the Seattle area.
Yep.
Said that 2.5 years ago, the gathering was 134 temperature.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Here.
Was
in
it
Palm-
here?
In Palm Springs,
Woo!
yeah.
So not quite that hot, but
Yeah.
it's quite warm.
I don't think I could handle that. To be inside.
Yeah. All right, big shout out to Douglas McCoy, just tuned in. And yeah, guys, if you've just tuned in, this will be on the Hairbrainz Facebook page in the archive. So if you want to see it from beginning to end, that'll be up in just a couple of hours. So Again, thanks to Hairbrain and Gerard and the team for letting us share the Davines love.
Well, you know, it'll be up if Gerard likes it.
He'll like it.
I know.
That's looking great.
Yeah, no, it's looking really pretty. I think, you know, the product has given the hair, you know, the control that I like. Because, you know, Marie's hair does have a tendency to swell. And like I said, you know, with the blow dry, this is something that you would have to, you know, either really blow dry fully, completely, with either a round brush.
What are you spraying?
Oh, it's a secret now. All right, so this is the definition mist. So this is a great finish for the edges now that it's mostly dry. So I can create a little texture. Also add some shine to the hair.
Marie likes a little shine.
Oh, she loves a little shine. Yeah. Oh, gots to. That's so East Coast. All right, and then also the perfecting hairspray. Yeah, and these are all from your hair assistant.
It's an amazing line.
Yeah, great line, Mr. Angelo Seminara. You can see the texture, just again, just trying to get that, you know, to kind of kick out a little bit. Not that it's hard with our hair, you know, it's just getting it into the right place. I love it, always love a little expansion through the bottom. And then from there, I'm gonna let it dry on its own. You know, let her dry off, let her go sit by the pool, have some fun. She's not working today, you know. And then I'm gonna have you stand up, Marie. And, you know, just if you look at the back, again, you know, the reason that I didn't cut a strong outline, can I take this off? Is that I wanted something soft and loose at the edge, right? Whereas if I was to cut it blunt, you know, I don't think the consistency, you know, I'm thinking about the fringe, you know, from the layering down, kicking out. You know, if you have a nice soft fringe and then blunt, I mean, imagine what that would look like if it was a pair of jeans. You know, it wouldn't work, right? So it frays from the shortest point into the perimeter. There you go. Oh, you look so beautiful. There you go, guys. All right.
All right,
Take it away, Wayne.
Big thank you to Hairbrain again. Thank you, Camilla, for this beautiful color. As always, thank you, Julian.
Thank
and
you.
Thanks for filming, Ayla. We'll see you guys next time.